How I made my first $1 million online by the age of 23. Now, my first million was by far the most difficult, but also definitely the most rewarding. Now, $1 million is great. Don't get me wrong. Having money is awesome, and it solves all of your money-related issues. But the lessons, the memories, and the struggles that I learned from in making my first $1 million that I'm sharing with you today are worth way more than $1 million, because even just the skills to make $1 million will stay with me forever and can be shared and taught. So in this video, I'm going to share with you the principles that I learned that helped me make my first $1 million online and the specific business models that I used to do it. So that hopefully, whether you follow my path or not, you can learn something and do it for yourself. Now, to understand how I made my first $1 million online, we first have to talk about how I made my first dollar online, which started back in 2019 with the dropshipping business model. Now, as everybody knows, dropshipping promises the laptop lifestyle, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and traveling while working on the beach. And even though I knew that most of the dream around dropshipping was just marketing fluff, I knew that I could make good money with it, and I felt that I needed to give it a shot. Now, this choice to give it a shot led me to failure after failure. I remember testing around 8 different product shop ideas, all vastly different from one another. And I vividly remember every time I would set up the Facebook ads, I'd just sit at my computer watching it spend my money without getting any sales. This was also a financially difficult time for me. I had just made the decision to not go to university, I quit my full-time job, and I was about 4 weeks away from getting my real estate license. Now, since I needed money coming in before I got my license, I took a job at Starbucks, which I completely hated and only worked at for about 5 days. But during those 5 days, something interesting happened. In the back of the Starbucks, I was sitting down at the desk watching the training videos on the computer, and even though I always keep my phone on silent, I got a notification. And it played the Shopify cha-ching order sound, which I had never heard before. And this was the first money that I had ever made online. After weeks of trying, and it was still for a loss. The shop wasn't profitable after the ads and the website costs, but that didn't even matter to me. And in that moment, I just sat there because I knew I was going to figure out how to make it work. I didn't know how, but I knew I would. I felt like God was giving me the green light. But little did I know that I was in for a lot more failure before I'd go on to make my first $1 million online. So I still went to real estate school and got my license. And then after I'd committed to that business, the lockdowns started in 2020, making in-person business much more difficult to do. So I went back to figuring out remote work and online business. The thing is that real estate and most other business models are quite expensive to be in, and since I had no money coming in, I was spending a few $1,000s each month just to stay in business, so I had to figure out something quickly. This led me to go back to dropshipping since it's a very affordable business, except that I was so broke that I had to figure out how to start dropshipping for free. And this is where I learned about marketplaces. When I learned that you can dropship products on a platform like Etsy, where they'll drive all the traffic for you and run ads without you having to spend anything, it was only up from there. Instead of dropshipping cheap products from China, which were taking weeks or even months to arrive due to the international situation, I started to sell digital products and print-on-demand products. Now, print-on-demand products work essentially the same as dropshipping, except you're selling white label products, which are products like mugs, t-shirts, posters, or face masks with designs uploaded to them. Since they're printed and shipped from within the US, the customers get their items really quickly, and Etsy allows sellers to integrate directly to print-on-demand platforms like Printify. Now, when I figured out that this existed, that I could make and post as many products as I could possibly think of on Etsy, and that they would drive their organic traffic to my products, I felt like I had found a money printing glitch. I spent several weeks posting as many products as I could for sale, and the sales started coming in. I also didn't really have many options at this point because I was losing a lot of money every month just trying to stay in business, so I had to make something work. Now, I was hardly making any money at first, but I could see a bunch of other shops selling print-on-demand and digital products, so I knew that scaling to over 7 figures was definitely possible. And that's all I needed to know. Once I knew that it could be done, I started to analyze my own shop to see why I wasn't growing like the others. First, I noticed that I wasn't following obvious advice. I was trying to avoid competition, and I was selling products that nobody else was selling, and I focused way too much on doing market research and product research instead of just making good products. And I was also penny pinching, so I wouldn't invest that much back into the business unless it was clearly obvious that I needed to. Identifying that I was penny pinching and shying away from selling in competitive niches on Etsy, I was just running my business like a total beginner. Just identifying my problems gave me another green light moment where I knew I was going to be successful with this business. Fast forward about 8 months after I decided that this was going to be my business, by staying consistent and following my plan, I was able to scale my shops to the point where they were making about $10,000 a month. Now, I vividly remember the first month I took home $10,000 a month in profit after tax, and I actually wasn't that surprised. It had felt like it was a long time coming. This was a beautiful full circle moment because just 8 months before, I was dreaming of becoming a dropshipper, and even though it didn't look exactly how I thought it would, the result was the same. After reaching $10,000 a month, I felt like I'd broken a mental barrier because that seemed like a lot of money at the time, and this paved the way for me to make my first $1 million a lot easier. Now, there were 2 major changes that I had to make to reach that first $1 million. The first was by narrowing down what I did, and the second is by building a system. I reached $10,000 a month by opening several shops, posting a ton of different products, and my businesses were kind of all over the place. I was scrambling to get to that point. What I had to do was dial in and focus my shops on fulfilling one need at a time. When I was able to do that, everything else started to fall into place. Instead of splitting my effort into 3 or 4 different shops, when I decided to scale one at a time, I was able to put 100% of my focus into scaling that business. Second is I had to build out a system that allowed me to make better products, make more products, and get those products to sell. I have a few different systems that I use for each part of my business, and these are the same systems which have been tremendously helpful for my students of the 6-Figure Storefront program. Now, whether you're following my systems or not, I think that systems in general are essential for business success. And overall, it sounds really easy because honestly, it is. What I found was that when you have the right business vehicle, which starting out for me was selling digital products and print on demand on a marketplace platform like Etsy, and you have a blueprint or a path to follow, the hardest part is doing the work, and everything else is simple and honestly easy to do. Making my first $1 million online was a battle against myself and my own mind. Those kind of statements kind of sound elusive from the other side, but when you're able to focus on something and actually put effort towards that goal, it's amazing what you can achieve. Most of the early failures that I encountered were because I was doing things that I thought was right, but in reality, it was just out of ignorance. When I put that aside and I started listening to the successful dropshippers and the successful shop owners, I was able to reach the $1 million mark. As cliche as it sounds, I think it really comes down to your mindset and your attitude towards the work. For me, making my first $1 million online came down to finding the right business vehicle, building out systems to make the work efficient, and then just doing the work. Not every business vehicle is right for everyone, but if you are interested in hearing more about print on demand, you can watch this video next. And as always,